All right. Well, here we are. Looks like we're starting with Liz. Ah, yes. This guy's going to put Trump back in the White House.
Yeah, this article. I had to pick it because it read like an Onion article.
Yeah.
There were a few real choice. There were a few real choice quotes from this article, but he's, supposedly assembling this army of hackers to show that there really was election fraud. And there have been a lot of good comments from friends on this. Sam, you had a good one. One of my favorites, though, was from a friend who worked in operations at a few big tech companies, and he goes, "Oh, that's total BS. If he actually had that, he would have used his army of hackers to make Overstock not suck."
Yeah, there's that. I just think if you're a red teamer and you need a job, this might be a job.
Yeah. I wonder. He didn't mention how much he's paying.
Well, when they asked him for proof, he just vanished. So I bet when you ask for your paycheck, he'll do the same.
Yeah.
But it's incredible how many psychotics are jumping on the Trump train, like that lawyer that claimed Hugo Chavez had hacked the election, and she was so crazy Rudy Giuliani kicked her off the bus. Like,
Yeah, this guy just seems completely unhinged from.
yeah, before this, he claimed that the CIA had told him to seduce a Russian spy.
Oh, I mean, there's shades of McAfee here.
Yeah, the FBI. I know. The Trump gang is really bringing out every schizophrenic in the world to like jump on board and talk about conspiracies and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at least he's not violent, I guess. That's something. So they're going to do something about the CFAA?
Yes.
With
yes.
this court?
Yes, with this court. They're going to hear arguments on the CFAA to see, if depending on what happens, it could change even what we do.
Oh, yeah.
Because we like to play with stuff, and depending on how they define certain things, it could be, we could all be liable for what we do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we are now. I talked to the head of the cybercrime division from the FBI at B-Sides, and he came and talked to my class. And and he said, "We know that everything you do is illegal, but don't worry. We have prosecutorial discretion, and we will only prosecute the bad guys. So you guys will be all right." And I'm like, man, I would really like a more firm foundation for my activities than that. But that's where we are.
Yeah.
And I remember, this is what people say about China. There are laws that say incredibly vague things like you cannot harm the people by causing them to mistrust the government. So what does that mean? Nobody has any clue what that means. It just means you do what you want, and every now and then they swoop in and lock you up, and then everybody hides, and then they start doing stuff again until they get clobbered. Nobody knows where the line is.
We'll only prosecute you if you're truly a bad guy or if you're politically inconvenient.
I know. So it would be nice if they can clarify this, but I don't have any confidence at all in this Supreme Court to do anything good.
Yeah, so that it's kind of scary.
Well, I don't know if you could make this law worse. I guess you could. Like, there were a lot of proposals to ban possession of hacking tools, like they did, I think, in France and Germany at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't have Kali Linux or anything. But I don't think anybody wants to do that. Another thing they've talked about for decades is having some kind of requirement for like a cybersecurity license or some kind of minimum qualifications to be in the field, which would be something like the CISSP or something. But I don't think there's any chance of any of that happening. Anyway.
Banning hacking tools is an interesting one because how do you decide what a hacking tool is?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, that's why until like about 5 years ago, everybody said if you put up a hacking article, you have to put a big disclaimer on it. Don't use this for unethical purposes. And then we all just sort of got tired of that and quit doing that. And it doesn't seem like you'll lose your CISSP for not doing that. But nobody knows if that's required or anything. Yeah, anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we'll need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, whatever they do will affect us. Yeah. Anyway, so Baltimore. All right.
Right. So Baltimore. So we're now living in an age where a cyber attack is now closing down schools. So we used to have snow days or holidays or stuff that would come in and close down schools. Now if your school is the victim of a huge cyber attack, you get a few days off because they can't operate the schools without the computers. And that's what happened in Baltimore this morning. Kids are unable to go to school or do any like remote learning because, or at least do limited remote learning because a cyber attack put a bunch of ransomware on the school's computers. So welcome to the 21st century, everyone.
I like that the school's network did not safeguard personal information and had other serious risks.
Yep.
I think you could just like make a label like that and stamp it on every computer everywhere. Like, warning, this computer does not safeguard information and has serious risks.
That's true. It's especially true when you're talking about, grade and middle school computer systems.
Yeah. I did a lot of security tests at colleges, and I would warn them. And then I tried some high schools, and I called them and said, dude, you've got like an open authentication page or something ridiculous. Oh, we had some ability to put links from your page to other pages so you'll get blamed for it, open redirects. And I got officials at high schools, and I never did that again, man. Talking to them, they said, what are you talking about? You're just a criminal. You're lying. We're not going to do anything. We're going to lock you up. It's like, there's no point even trying to tell them anything about security.
Oh, wow. Well,
I think, they're even behind colleges in like awareness. And what I learned at colleges is if they don't have an active cyber competition team, don't bother trying to tell them anything because nobody else at the college can even understand what you're talking about. Anyway.
Good to know.
Well, if high schools with a competition team, you could probably tell them things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Then they would freak out.
So I thought this is pretty interesting. IBM had a press release out today saying that they're going to deliver quantum safe cryptography. And it was rather short on details, so I looked into it because the thing that struck me is, how can they do that? There are no standards yet. But this, I guess, is the same as it always has been. And I think it started with WPA. The WEP was unsafe for wireless technology, but the IEEE did not approve any replacement for like a decade. So all the manufacturers just made something up and released it and sold it for years without a standard. And that appears to be what IBM's doing, because IBM is now offering quantum safe cryptography, but I checked, right? And the quantum safe cryptography, here's NIST. The official government competition is not going to end until 2022. So there is no government approved quantum safe cryptography standard, but IBM does have one of the finalists. And one thing that surprised me is Google's New Hope washed out. There's only 4 finalists for encryption and 2 for signatures. And IBM has these crystals ones. So apparently IBM is probably taking one of these. They're going to sell the product on this. And then I guess if it's approved as the government standard, they'll really be in a good position. If it's not approved as the government standard, then they'll have to offer whatever the standard is also for government use. But anyway, we're moving right along. It's been delayed by the coronavirus until 2022. One of these 4 is going to be the new cryptography standard. And so we all got to learn lattice-based encryption, which is based on learning with errors, which is far more mind-bending than, say, elliptic curve cryptography or the other baffling stuff with the logarithms. So I'm going to try and teach that in my crypto class. We'll see if I can get some version of one of these things going. It is really strange. You have, I've got some prototype software used in the class. You encrypt stuff, and every time you encrypt it and decrypt it, it takes more damage as the errors add up. So you can only encrypt it so many times before it degrades to noise. At least one of these. So they are really strange, but supposedly they cannot be fixed. They cannot be broken with a quantum computer. So we're going to have to learn how to use them and cope with them. Anyway, it'll be good, clean fun as we move ahead. We might as well get used to these names anyway. So Microsoft's productivity score. Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy. And sort of, I think, indicative of where we're headed in terms of workplace employer surveillance, especially with a large shift of the workforce to remote work. It's quite unfortunate, they say at Microsoft, they're like, oh, well, we remove PII from there, but we've heard that before. And they say that they're super careful about it and all this other stuff. But again, you know, we've heard all that before. So
It's not a feature where they are like proud of it and want your boss to like see it.
they do. It's kind of like they want to have it both ways in the way that they're advertising this. And they say that it's not about monitoring your employees, but that's the entire purpose of the product.
They did it in college about 5 years ago. They had us rate every student, and they had us rate how much they improved their scores from the previous class. And everyone said, "Oh, you won't keep track of this on an individual basis." And they said, "We absolutely won't." And they said, "You won't make hiring decisions based on it." We absolutely won't. And then they did both of those things. So,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. And you know, let's hope that this
58%.
doesn't catch on. But they middle managers love this kind of crap.
Sure, you're 58% productive. That's a handy number.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't matter. The metrics on these things tend to be just wildly flawed. You know, as long as they see, it's like the Dilbert cartoon. As long as they see a chart, that chart is gospel. That's all they want to see are charts and graphs.
Yeah, I remember that. The reason why it matters for teaching is because we totally make up the numbers. So I could just make up numbers to make me appear to be getting better or worse or staying the same. Just tell me what my performance goals are. Like, one of the things that I think is hilarious is a withdrawal counts as a student success, but an F counts as a student failure. So you can just adjust the percent of failure to any number you want at any time.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the kind of stuff when we decouple, when we break things down like this, it seems like a good idea on paper, but it's really not. It reminds me of the story that came out over the weekend of this guy who worked for Sherwin-Williams, the paint manufacturer, and he apparently developed some like wildly popular TikTok channel where he was promoting their paints, and all these people started buying more paint and asking for these weird color combos that he'd done on his channel. So they found out about it and immediately fired the guy.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes just decoupling like your actual business and the real world from these numbers and charts leads you to make really stupid business decisions.
Well, I think there's two different kinds of workplaces. Like, I heard the teacher of the year at a meeting in Sacramento from high school, and he taught algebra, and he tried a whole new way to teach algebra that was far better. So Oakland fired him for rocking the boat, and he moved to Sacramento, where they put him in charge of the entire department and had him show all the other teachers his method and made him a hero. Because, I mean, some companies just want you to not rock the boat. Other companies want to innovate and do things new. It's two different cultures.
Right.
Anyway.
Needed that productivity score when I used to work in a managed service provider.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a phone operator, we were basically on a help desk of sorts for legal things, and they kept track of how many calls you did per hour, and I was at the top of it. I was quite happy. Anyway, but you know, there are some productivities that make sense, I guess. There's certain repetitive jobs where you can just measure how many pieces per hour are you doing.
Mm-hmm.
But anything creative, you can't really measure it that well.
Yeah.
Anyway, HackRF, what is this thing?
So HackRF is the software-defined radio. And there is this new thing you can add on it it's called Mayhem. And it basically is that. You can jam phones. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. You can copy key fobs.
Hold on. You can jam bones and you can copy key fogs. What do those things mean?
So you can take the signals from the air and either copy them or modify them or do all kinds of interesting things with this guy. There's a detailed blog that kind of shows the number of things you can do.
So Sam, a HackRF is both a transmitter and a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, but it's a SDR. So anything you can transmit, anything you can receive, you can do with that as long as it's below 5 gigahertz.
So could you hack into cars by cloning the key fob signal?
You could copy the the signal and probably send it back. Yeah.
Presumably, it won't let you just get in the car with a duplicated signal, but I bet a lot of garage door openers and stuff would.
Right. So something
So,
like that would work.
so no, I've seen people hack into cars with HackRF before, and Irvin's exactly right. What they do is they get a code from somebody's key fob when they're near or they'll relay the key fob.
Right.
So like, if someone's has a key fob in their bedroom, they'll set up a few relays and then grab the signal and get it near the car. So there are definitely ways to do that without needing to, know the internals of the key fob.
There's also just a straight up replay attack where you can capture it one time and then replicate it.
Supposedly, cars won't let you do that anymore, but I bet some devices will.
I mean, it depends on what year the car is made. I mean, they're not going to be updating all the car locks just because we found a flaw, a few years ago. So
I suppose. Was there a generation of cars where you could do a simple replay attack?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was.
There are still cars on the market today where you can do that.
There are. That's awesome. We got to try that. All right. That does sound like fun. And what is this thing, Impacket?
So Impacket is a Python library that's used extensively when hacking into Windows systems. You can use it for things like automating or sending out things like psexec commands. And they just updated a new version, and this version has updated support for zero logon, as well as some more support for RPCs. Getting in there and executing commands on the client servers. Wow. Anyway, it's just one of those important tools that if you're doing any sort of Windows hacking, you need to know Impacket. So yeah, a new version came out today. So
maybe we should throw this in the hacking classes, like Metasploit.
Oh, it's not in the hacking classes?
I don't think it is. I didn't write projects.
It should be. Impacket should be in there.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Okay, maybe I can help you write a project using it.
Yeah, I guess so. I never even heard of it. We're totally not using it. If we should be, we better learn it.
Yeah. No, that if you're doing like attacking domains, Impacket, 100%.
Well, that's important. All right, and so there's Mac OS malware out there. It puts backdoors, and the thing that caught my attention is not only is, of course, the Mac, which is unusual, it comes in as a fake Microsoft Office document, which unzips, because Microsoft Office documents are just zip files now, and it's from a Vietnamese government attack agency that is stealing PII to benefit Vietnamese companies. So apparently they're following China's playbook here, which I was not aware of from Vietnam. So from a viewpoint of threat attribution and sort of the attack framework, threat actors, that is an interesting issue. So I guess we should start treating Vietnam sort of like China, regarding them about the same. Might be fun to get a copy of this and see how it works. But anyway, I have never thought of Vietnam as like a top attacker, but apparently they're moving up there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I thought we were on pretty good terms with the Vietnamese government, but maybe not. Anyway. Turkey bombing.
Yeah, this one's pretty good. So this was just a nice little holiday themed attack that happened where people were essentially preying on the fact that a lot of folks were doing Thanksgiving celebrations over Zoom with their families, and mounted a pretty successful phishing campaign where they managed to harvest a bunch of people's email credentials and stuff like that. So,
oh, see, I couldn't understand this because, of course, it's my attitude. I said, they're making people go to business meetings on Thanksgiving. Oh, you're supposed to think that was your family Zoom meeting. Okay.
Right.
Well, okay.
Like a lot of people did their family dinners over Zoom.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. Well,
all right. They took out the restriction for like 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So it can go on longer than 40 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So, and obviously a bunch of people who are not technical are going to be like getting this invite, trying to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so, yeah, they hit a bunch of people
Yeah, makes sense. All right. That's efficient social engineering. And Cyber Olympics, okay. So tell us about this.
The Cyber Olympics has started yesterday. This is one of 2 regional events that I do every year for our competition students. This time it's going to be more Olympic based, and I have more students running it than the years prior. So for example, I have a team of hosts who will be providing color commentary and explanations of what the games are for the next 3 Saturdays in a row at 1 p.m. So my admin team has created the contests. We have 14 teams playing this year. Usually we have 16, but whatever, it works. So we have a couple of beginners and a bunch of advanced, and gonna try this gamified hacking competition where the students are the ones leading it. They're the ones explaining it and providing that commentary so that anybody can watch and understand what's happening and see the teams play.
Oh, well, it sounds great. So we can tune in this Saturday at 1 to find out more about it?
Yep. So that the video that's there is the welcome video. I know it doesn't have a whole lot of info for people who don't know anything of what's going on, but it is the start, and the teams who are playing have been in the know for a while. So it was definitely geared for them, but the Saturday videos will be geared for everybody.
Good. Well, I totally want to see that. All right. And it looks like we've lost Liz. She might be coming back now. All right. But anyway, we got Advent calendar. What's this?
It's a code security Advent calendar. So today is the last day of November. So December's coming up. So starting tomorrow, this Sonar Source is going to release an Advent calendar of code vulnerabilities. And so every day you'll get a new piece of code, and it's going to have some sort of vulnerability hidden inside it. And it's not as obvious as you would think. I was looking over last year's calendars. So instead of just having like an exec function that you can use to send in code through a weird string you send in, it'll have things like, one of the things I looked at was a importer for a OpenOffice ODF file. And it looks totally normal. It just extracts strings from the ODF file and displays it to the user, until you realize that ODF files are XML files, and you can use XXC attacks on it. So it's not as obvious as you would think. So every day they're going to go through, and these are all real world examples that they found of bugs. So it's good practice to look and find bugs that aren't exactly obvious to find.
Oh, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
And that's something, again, that's not covered enough in our courses, is seeing bugs in real code and figuring out how to fix it. That's definitely a good thing to add. All right. And then I guess we got, so DNS, there was a Dyn DNS attack 4 years ago that brought down a whole bunch of the internet, and I didn't realize how bad this is. They've tested and said we are now more vulnerable than we used to be. And I didn't know this. A large portion of companies only have one DNS provider. And the whole point of having 2 DNS servers everywhere, that's in the RFCs, that's been best practices forever. You should have 2 sources of DNS, and people just aren't doing it, which I had no idea. It's pretty nuts. And this kind of reminds me of like last week, Amazon went down and a whole bunch of the web was gone and your vacuum cleaner quit working and everything. It's surprising, because that would be easy enough to have 2 different cloud providers, but people just aren't doing it. So the top 3 DNS providers, Cloudflare is number 1, AWS and GoDaddy.
GoDaddy? That's funny.
GoDaddy, wow.
Well, I think the whole point of GoDaddy is like AOL, I think. They're where you go if you really don't know much about technology, to make it easy for a beginner to put up a site.
It's just funny that they're number 3.
They are number 3. Cloudflare is number 1, which I totally agree with. I think everybody should be using Cloudflare. Not particularly, but actually, now that I think about it, if you use Cloudflare, you can't have a backup DNS. You have to make them your only DNS provider by the nature of their business. Anyway, it's an interesting issue. People don't think about DNS attacks very much. but everybody's vulnerable. All right, any more comments?
Nope.
Stop this one.